Thank you, Cassandra. Okay, so yeah, just in the interest of everybody's time, thank you very much for everybody that has joined the call today. I definitely appreciate you taking some time out with CDW and just to listen to what we have to say about the supply chain challenges that we're currently having. So my name is Jason Bowles. I'm the sales manager here for our government team. On the call, we also have Judy Offat, who leads our education team, and Sana Salim, who leads our healthcare team. I am going to now pass this off to Dan Reio, who is the Director of PPM and Endpoint Solutions, and he's going to lead us through our presentation today. If you do have any questions, sorry, Dan, if you do have any questions, please feel free to pop them into the chat, but there is going to be some time afterwards as well to ask some questions live if you are comfortable doing so as well. Thank you very much.
That's great. Thank you, Jason. So thanks everyone for the opportunity to discuss the supply chain update. More specifically, we're actually going to spend a little bit of time talking about the challenges that not only our tech industry, but the world faces, and how, in your case, CDW can help our customers through this situation. So as Jason noted, my name is Dan Reio. I'm Director of what we call Product and Partner Management for CDW's endpoint portfolio. So that's essentially made up of our PCs and peripherals business. For CDW, just to put things in perspective, that's about half of CDW's business, represents well over $500 million in revenue just here in Canada alone. And just some fun facts to give you some notion of the size of this business, represents about 200,000 laptops that we ship annually, 100,000 desktops and workstations, 250,000 displays, 750,000 accessories, and 150,000 printers. So pretty big business for us, and obviously supply chain that is very important to our business and to make sure that we get the products that you are all looking for in your hands. I'm going to spend the next 15 minutes or so it won't take much of your time, discussing the situation that we're all facing, and then we'll open up for questions. As Jason noted, if you have any, just throw them in the chat, or you're welcome to ask them live at the end as well when we jump into the question section. So let's jump in, and next slide, Cassandra. Let's talk a little bit about what's going on. And I thought these headlines were appropriate. So these are things that I've pulled off various publications across the internet. Lots of headlines covered here. And I've highlighted a few key words that I'll talk about. So surging demand. The market isn't slowing down. Chip shortages, increasing shipping costs, a container crisis, major real world consequences. On what? Everything. And that quote on the bottom is interesting. So if you think about it, we are 20 plus months into the pandemic. And you know when that all-time high for backlogged cargo ships was? Just a few months ago. It was only November of 2021. So we're 2 years into this, and we're still catching up. And I'm going to talk a little bit of what the future looks like as best we can tell as I go on as well. Next slide, Cassandra. So what is impacted? Well, the reality is everything. I'm sure many of you have tried to buy a car, an Xbox, furniture, and I think you'll all agree that finding things is much harder than it used to be. And if you do find it, you're probably not finding deals on anything either. Or in fact, prices are actually higher than they were in the past. I was actually at IKEA over the weekend looking for a desk for my wife. And of the 10 options that she and I looked at, 8 were out of stock. So furniture significantly impacted by the pandemic as well. So you may be asking yourself at a macro level, what's actually happening here? Well, here's the reality. Manufacturers across all technologies, across all products, reacted to a pandemic back in March of 2020 as expected, meaning they actually stopped making things. Normally, when a world issue like a pandemic actually occurs, people do actually stop buying. But this time around, guess what happened? Everybody started buying more. Demand for almost everything went up, and that was a bit of a shock to the system. So let's put things in perspective from a CDW lens. Talking about high in demand, within my team's portfolio, right, our PC business makes up about 70% of our business. That business back in 2020, a few years ago now, grew about $8 million year over year. Now in 2021 that we just finished, we shipped almost $100 million more in PCs. That's 12x the growth of the year before. That's almost 100,000 PCs more than the previous year. And our business actually across all categories at CW was up more than $250 million last year. So while you all may feel shortages and find products are taking longer to get, the actual reality is that we and the industry have been shipping significantly more than previous years. So the only reason shortages really exist is due to the huge demand and that supply chain that really can't keep up with that huge volume increase. So let's talk about shortages. Our world's consumption of computer chips has been constantly increasing. Not surprising, right? Everything uses some kind of chip these days. The trigger of that shortage was, in fact, the pandemic, right? Lockdowns shut down semiconductor chip making in the key production areas like Japan, China, Korea, US, etc. The ability to ramp back up and then catch up has been just way too much for the system. And as you can imagine, the factories, these manufacturing facilities, cost billions of dollars and take years to build. So you can't just add more capacity to the system. Some of our partners like Apple, NetApp, Pure Storage actually make their own chips. And so therefore, some of them are less at the mercy of the component manufacturers. But for most manufacturers of technology products, they actually depend on the core chips. Think the AMDs, the Intels, and other chip making companies. And interesting one market dynamic we're seeing actually from all of you is that you are tending to buy higher end machines right now as well too. And not surprisingly, the OEMs are more than happy to use the scarce computer chips they can get in higher spec models. But then what happens? Well, that means that other models, like lower end models, are actually fewer in supply, right? So you have upside on one, downside on the other. And there's also uncertainty in supply, right? As the OEMs are happy to focus their components 1 week on one technology, then the next week they may focus their capacity, demand, and scarce resources on another. So what happens is you may buy something one day and get it the next week. You may buy something again and get it 2 months later, the same product. And it all has to do with where they're allocating their manufacturing resources and their scarce products or scarce components that they have. And then even when goods can actually be manufactured, then we run into the shipping problem, right? It's hard for them to get to their destination. Logistics companies themselves were impacted, right? So those who physically move goods from one location to the other, as you can imagine, there's no luxury to work from home for that industry. And so they too are struggling to catch up and deal with those high demands. So let's talk about some shipping stats that have transpired in the marketplace. Large container ships, if you're not aware, these are these ocean-going cargo vessels, actually are the primary way that goods are moved internationally. In fact, about 90% of what we all buy arrives by ship in some way. During the first lockdown, capacities in manufacturing and shipping dropped, right? Then the market realized the demand didn't drop, so factories ramped back up, crammed the shipping systems, which scrambled to ramp back up. And with lower demand in past years, those shipping companies had really not been upgrading or adding to their fleets. So again, no more ships, just like we don't have more manufacturing capacity short term. We also don't have any new ships in the short term. Then unfortunately, and you can attribute some of this to global warming and other challenges around the world, but we've had natural disasters that have actually had a big impact on the business, right? Storms, right? There's a rumor that one of our OEMs had thousands of laptops in container ships that actually fell off a ship in the ocean. So those laptops are now at the bottom of the ocean. I'm sure all of you were captivated by the Suez Canal and that ship that was stuck there. Such big volumes. So even something as trivial as a single ship stuck in the Suez Canal had massive impacts to the supply chain, and catch up ultimately could take years. So before 2020, just to put cost in perspective, a 40-foot, 12-meter container on a sailing ship from a Chinese port to North America costs about $1,000 to ship. Currently, it's about $10,000 to ship. So it just gives you a perspective on the cost that is also being impacting on the system, hence some of the price increases that you may have heard about across products that you're looking to buy. Interestingly enough, some retailers are actually getting creative, right? Home Depot and Costco have actually tried to charter their own container ships, not even depending on shipping companies. And Coca-Cola actually did something really interesting where they actually recently moved a big ton shipment of sacks aboard a bulk carrier instead of containers. And normally containers are the way that everything is moved, but they actually tried to get creative. So companies are getting creative about how they can better deal with this supply chain situation. And it's not just cargo ships, right? Air freight is extremely high as well, as is trains and trucking as well. And not surprisingly, the continual quarantining, the outbreaks that are happening, social distancing, all of these continue to lead to just lower available capacity today. And we're still trying to catch up to that massive backlog. And so you may ask yourself, we're a couple of years later, why are we not under control yet? Well, it's all about volume. Right? Constant balancing and production across all industries. Chips might get produced for cars 1 week, for PCs the next. So there's no such thing as predictable supply. So while these things are getting better, and we are definitely feeling lots of feedback from our OEMs that things are getting better, some maybe you call them skeptics, are actually reporting it'll probably take years for things to get back to normal. So we'll continue to watch this, and we'll continue to provide information where we can to all of you through your account management team, where there are updates that we can provide. So right now, the situation continues to be really highly fluid and just constantly changing. And so it's something that you just have to keep pace of, and that's what we strive to do. So how does all of this that I just said materialize for all of you? I'm sure you felt it. Longer lead times, inconsistent ETAs, just lacking inventory, right? You know, in the past, you might be able to call up CDW and order something and get it the next day. You might not have that luxury anymore because of stock is just not there right now. And then last but not least, increasing pricing, right? Or less interest from the OEM manufacturers in actually offering special pricing because of the scarce supply of their products. Next slide. So from a CDW perspective, you know, we do have a lot to offer, and I do want to talk a little bit about how we can help you mitigate some of these, you know, supply chain situations. So a lot of things that are listed here, you know, we have a lot to offer, you know, large, stable market dominant, lots of coworkers, lots of years of experience, lots of technical coworkers, and I'll explain why that's important in a second. Services capabilities, right? And then I'm going to spend a little bit more time talking about these last ones. From a services perspective, we do have an incredible team of service professionals, as well as services partners, and offer a wide assortment of services. If you specifically look on just the endpoint portfolio, we offer things like imaging, autopilot deployment services, asset tagging, configuration capabilities. We can do digital signage deployments, manage print solutions, and also offer other custom and professional services. On the last two items on this list, I'm going to spend a little bit elaborating on how these two can help you through the supply chain situation we're facing. So next slide. So one of the benefits that CDW size and scale has is a relative importance that we not only have with our manufacturer partners, but also for our distribution partners. For most of our manufacturer partners, CDW is their largest seller. And for our distribution partners, CDW is often their #1 customer. What this reality means is that we are well engaged at the highest levels through these connections and engagement, and are able to escalate your needs and get, you know, more than our fair share of product availability for all of you. And hopefully you did find that over the last couple of years. Next slide. Another benefit that CDW brings is our amazing team of pre-sales experts. I want to talk a little bit about the benefit of this. So this chart on this page here with all these smiling faces is actually just my own team. So this is our team of pre-sales experts focused on the endpoint business. You'll see the brands as listed there. We have another team just as large focused on the data center partners, as well as having a team of solution architects with expertise across security, networking, storage, cloud, and software. And you may ask, why is this beneficial in the supply chain topic that we're talking about today? Well, to start with, they're the experts who can understand your business and make solution recommendations. But more importantly, on today's topic of shortages, they can also make recommendations on product and solution alternatives that are more available in the market, right? They have very close alignment to our product management team, to our vendors and distribution partners, and can align the available solutions for your needs and with what's available in stock. So please do not hesitate to leverage this large team of pre-sale experts to help you find solutions to your business problems that are more available in today's constrained marketplace. This team also, just so you're aware, digs into the back orders proactively. So the back orders that you may have with CDW right now, they dig into them and they proactively bring product alternatives and alternate recommendations to your account managers to bring to you, right? So those are opportunities where we can maybe suggest another alternative product that may fit what it is you're trying to accomplish within your organizations. Next slide. So the next slide, I'm going to talk a little bit about procurement programs that CDW offers. These are programs that can reduce the risk of getting the products you need when you need them. The first is simply inventory holds. By this, we mean that CDW periodically reviews the most popular products our customers buy from CDW. We review the market availability situation on those products, and we may commit to amounts of inventory, so it's ultimately reserved for CDW customers. This ensures that CDW customers have good availability on the most popular products. And often the relationships we have with our distributors already means that CDW gets priority access anyways. So inventory holds are not always necessary, but definitely something that we execute on periodically. The second program on this slide is pre-order. This is a program where CDW will actually order products for a customer's specific needs before you actually even place an order with CDW. While not surprisingly, this does present risk for CDW, there are various factors and criteria that come into play. So my ask is please just engage with your account manager if there are situations where you need us to pre-order so they can work with our procurement team on that possibility. Next slide. The next set of procurement programs are what we call staging programs. The first is hold and bill. In this program, you would enter into agreement with CDW where you commit to buying the products. CDW then secures the products into stock, we hold on to them, and then we sell them and ship them to you only when you need them. And there are two variations here. One being you tell us exactly the numbers you need, and that is what we secure. The second is called min-max, where CDW would ensure that we always have a certain level of products on hand, and then just automatically replenishes that as you consume that held inventory. In both of these hold and bill situations, right, the price could fluctuate. So the reality is you secure it at whatever price is current at the time of purchase. Now, the second program on this list, buy and hold, is slightly different in that you would actually purchase the products. CW only ships them as you need them. So in that case, you secure the price at the time of purchase, and therefore you don't have to worry about those price fluctuations. We have most definitely seen an uptick in usage of these procurement and staging programs during the months of the pandemic. So please do engage with your account manager to see whether these programs would fit your needs. Next slide. So before I close and open for questions, just a few summary comments about our organization. You may be aware, but we are part of a worldwide organization, have made a good number of recent acquisitions, including most recently Sirius Computer Solutions. From a CDW Canada perspective, we are now fully integrated from the acquisition we made of Scalar Decisions a few years ago, and the combined CDW and Scalar organization brings significant services and solutions capabilities to the Canadian market and all of you, with offices and coworkers right across Canada. So last slide. So in closing, right, the reality of the marketplace we face today is that these supply challenges that are impacting our business probably will not be, unfortunately, solved in the first half of this year. And at this point, we're only in the beginning of February. It's really too early to tell if we will have it all solved by the end of 2022. That said, we're continuing to see things get better, which is a good sign. All of the OEMs that I talk personally with, whether it's HP, Lenovo, Dell, Apple, Microsoft, all of them are definitely saying that things are getting better and they're optimistic about the future and supply availability. But we still have some catching up to do, right? Back orders are at an all-time high. There's definitely a backlog of product to get through. I'm sure many of you have products on order with CDW, so we'll get there and we'll just keep working on it together. And not surprisingly, the impact of the Omicron variant of COVID is already apparent, right? We're actually seeing it impacting staffing levels across the supply chain, which is again further causing some blips in that product availability. I'm sure for many of you, unfortunately, you've probably had some impact of COVID on your personal and professional lives. We're definitely seeing within our organization as well. As I shared earlier, CDW has better capability to help you navigate these supply challenges. But we still ask you to work closely with your account manager or account executive. Your sales contact at CDW can provide you those regular updates on the supply picture for the products you purchase from CDW. And if you don't have a regular QBR, quarterly business review, in place with your CDW salesperson, ask them about setting one up, right? It allows you to stay much more in touch because my team is constantly updating the sales organization on available supply chain across the vendors that we work with. And then when you think about your IT needs, we do recommend at this point you still keep thinking about forecasting a rolling 6 months with us. Get those orders in well ahead of time, well ahead of when you need them, so you can allow us to work on the needed supply for your internal needs. And if any of the procurement or staging programs could benefit your procurement needs, please do engage your account manager and talk to them about those programs. So with that, I hope that what you found or what you heard in this presentation was valuable. And with that, I'll open it up to questions if anything piqued your interest and you want a little bit more information about anything I may have talked to today. So thanks again for your time, and we'll open it to questions.
Thanks, Dan. There is actually a question in the chat, so I'll go ahead and read that off, and then maybe that'll spur some other questions from other customers. So with respect to supply shortages and procurement delays, is CDW able to do anything to work with OEMs to advocate for its clients? pain points?
Yes, absolutely. Great question. The reality is, and the very last slide that I showed there, where I talked about getting those orders in so that we can then chase the supply, that actually is a constant effort that we do. So we are constantly looking at orders. We actually just had a meeting this morning with our executive team all the way through to our GM, and we looked through and reviewed customer orders, and I'm working with my team, and my peer on the data center team works with her team to constantly engage with our manufacturer partners to highlight and prioritize orders. And one of the benefits that CDW plays, because we are such a large customer for those OEMs, large seller for those OEMs and our distributor partners, is that we do have ability to get priority on orders for sure. So I would say that is a constant practice for sure. Yeah, hopefully that answered the question.
Yeah, there was actually a second part to it
Oh,
as well.
sure. What's the second part?
So they gave an example is Cisco is now reporting 400 plus day delay on almost their entire catalyst switching line. As aging gear goes end of life, it's easy to get caught without an option other than dumping Cisco to ensure critical enterprise gear remains supported and current. So I don't know if
Yeah,
that
and I think
adds
that,
anything
yeah.
further.
And I would put it this way, we always have connections through to the most senior executives within the Canadian organizations, and by virtue of our US organization have pretty senior engagements as well. So I would bring that forward. We can definitely escalate it. The reality is the entire world is facing the same kind of challenges. So Canada will do our best to highlight specific orders. Bring forward the stories as best you can about what the situation is that you're personally facing. The only thing I can say though is that unfortunately you're probably not alone in that situation. There's probably lots of other customers facing a similar challenge where they may not have any other choice but to find another brand if that's the case. But I'm sure the Cisco team would love to hear your specific situation around this one. And if they have the power to do something about it, they will. But again, we have such line of sight that we can definitely table that with, in this case, your example with the Cisco executive team, and see if anything can be done. So I would say just bring them forward to your account manager, have your account manager escalate them to the product management team, and we can bring them forward. But it will have to be, unfortunately, a little bit of a one-by-one, case-by-case basis.
And we also had another follow-up question in the chat as well. So he was piggybacking on the previous one. He was talking specifically in school boards. They have challenges when they are carrying such high levels of committed funds from one budget year to another.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's something that we actually are seeing, the concept of budgets or funding spilling over from fiscal period to fiscal period and being able to leverage it. Whether it's federal government with their March 31st deadline and us being able to commit to product by those deadlines. Whether it's corporate year ends December 31st and us being able to do that. Unfortunately, that's the reality that we face. The only thing we can suggest, as I kind of suggested on that last slide, was get the orders in well ahead. Like if we can get 6 months notice of some of those budgets and what you might be looking for, we have a much better chance of chasing down supply. But the unfortunate reality with longer term or with the most of the custom products today, so if we're talking about CTOs or custom config models, lead times on those are very long. The only recommendation that I can make is do leverage our pre-sales team, as I talked about, because there may be alternatives that are better in stock or have better availability. And so unfortunately, you might need to be a little bit flexible with regards to the actual products that you need within your environment. As I said, we shipped on the PC side, 100,000 PCs more last year than we did the year before. So there is product availability, but it may not be exactly the products that you're looking for. So again, that pre-sales team that we have can definitely work with you and see if there's other alternatives that might be close enough from a spec perspective or that might solve the problem, but it would require a little bit of flexibility. Or, as I said, alternately, the earlier we can get those orders in, the more we have the ability to chase down supplies. But yeah, I get completely the situation of just having funds and, having a deadline for usage of those funds. And you're definitely not alone. We hear it from corporate, we hear it from government, we hear it from other institutions as well, too. So it's a challenge that we all face, unfortunately. And I wish there was a better answer, but there isn't. The supply, as I kind of described, is the situation that we're all facing. Good question. Thanks for bringing it up. Any other questions?
I don't see any other questions in the chat, Dan.
Okay. By all means, hopefully there was some value in what I provided. If you do have any questions, by all means, you're welcome to bring them back to your account manager you work with at CDW. the sales management team is on this call as well too, so they know how to escalate it to me and get you some answers. So we're always more than happy to provide back any feedback personally if there's anything that you have that comes up after we close today. But I just want to say thank you very much for your time, and yeah, appreciate your business.
Thanks for doing this, Dan. Much appreciated.
You're welcome. Thank you. Thanks, everyone. Take care. Have a good rest of your day.